Now students, as we have completed atom molecules and chemical reaction, now I am going to start is matter pure. So for that we are going to give you the digital content for the first 2-3 days, then followed by the explanation part of the chapter each part wise. Okay students, so watch these videos. Make sure that whenever you watch them, keep a pencil with you, or like place a textbook in front of you, so that you'll get the clarity of the concepts which are there in the explanation part and which are there in the textbook part. Okay.
Hello friends, this video on Light Part 8 is brought to you by examfear.com. No more fear from exam. So now we are going to talk about another important and another interesting aspect of image formation in plane mirror. Now we saw how our image is formed in the mirror. But have you ever observed that when you stand in front of the mirror, your right appears left and your left appears right on the mirror? If you write something, say, just look at this picture. So this is, if you call this as your right and this as your left, but when you see in the mirror, you see your right is on this side now. So this hand which was earlier right, now it is on the left side and the other hand is on the right side. So it has got reversed. Similarly, so this phenomenon of reversal of mirror image left and right as compared to the object is known as lateral inversion. Inversion means something getting reversed, something getting inverted. So what is getting inverted here? Left and right. Left becomes right, right becomes left. So this is called lateral inversion, and it happens for all image formation in plane mirrors. It always happens. Now the question is, why does that happen and why should that happen? Now for a while, let us just assume, we are just trying to assume that there is no lateral inversion. So in that case, the image should be like this. If we assume that lateral inversion should not happen, why should it happen? Now, from our knowledge, whatever we have gained till now, we know that the distance of the object from the mirror is equal to the distance of the image from the mirror. So if this is your mirror, this is the object, then this has to be the image, and then this distance, if this is your object and this is your image, then this distance is equal to this distance. And we also have learned that the entire image formation happens in the similar concept, that each part of our body, everywhere in our body is considered to be one point. And for each of those points, an image is formed on the other side of the mirror. Now, let us just consider any one point on this image. So let us say I am considering the tip of this finger. So this is my point. So I am considering this is my object, right? Because this is a point on the object. So then, as per my knowledge, this distance, that is distance of this point from the mirror, should be equal to the distance of the corresponding point of the image. So in this picture, it holds true because this distance and this distance are equal. Now let us see if it holds true in this case. In this case, the distance of this is this much, but the distance of this from the mirror is this much, which is not equal. So in this case, it doesn't hold true. Now, if you compare it for any point, so for any of the points, you will see that the distances are not equal. So let us assume this point. So if you take this point, so here the distance is this much, but here the distance is quite less. But in this case, you see, you compare it, the distance of the object is equal to the distance of the image. So with this, you can conclude that images cannot form like this. And that is why we have the concept of lateral inversion, because the entire image formation happens on that concept of point object and point image. So for every point on your body, an image is being formed. So when it happens point wise, so that then you actually end up getting a inverted or a reverted image. So in this case, what happens is the light which is traveling from the left hand side of the object is reflected straight back, and it appears to us as if it is coming from the right hand side of the image. So basically, with the help of the image distance and object distance, I think you can understand it pretty well. Now let us look at some more examples of lateral inversion. So this was all incorrect, and this is the correct one. Now you can see lateral inversion very clearly with something written. For example, you write light. Now the mirror image of light will be something like this. That is also the same concept. You see, the distance of t from the mirror should be equal to distance of t from the mirror. The distance of h is again the same. So for each of the point on the entire text, you will see that the image distance is equal to object distance. So if you place a mirror like this, so then the laterally inverted image will be somewhat like this, because here also you see the distance is always remaining the same. So with this concept of lateral inversion, you can also explain these type of phenomena where you see in case of object, this is the top and this is the bottom. But when you look at the image, it is inverted. So this has become the bottom and this has become the top has become the bottom. So this concept of lateral inversion is very common and it is very important. So with this, we have understood reflection of light, and we also got to understand how reflection of light helps us to see our images, how it helps us to see the objects around us. Thank you. Please visit www.examfear.com to watch more educational videos with a better experience. Please do not forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for latest updates. Thank you once again. Hello friends, this video on Light Part 11 is brought to you by examfear.com. No more fear from exam. Next is the eye lens. Now, needless to say how important the eye lens is. Due to the presence of eye lens, the process of reflection actually happens. So, what happens here is this is nothing but a transparent crystalline structure. Now the focal length of the eye lens decides where exactly the image will be formed. Now, where the image has to form, that is the image distance, is fixed because the image has to form on the retina. Correct? Now the object distance keeps varying. Now to make sure that the image always forms on the retina, what has to alter? The focal length of the lens has to alter, and that is why this lens is adjustable lens. So the focal length can be increased or decreased. So this lens can be made thicker or thinner or whatever. So the focal length can be changed. And it produces a real and inverted image. But do we see real and inverted image? No, because brain also plays a role there. But the image which is initially formed on the retina, that is real and inverted. And how is this lens located in one place? Who decides or who controls the location of the lens? That is controlled by the ligaments which are attached to the ciliary body. So if you see, the lens is attached to ciliary muscles on both sides. So these actually help to keep the lens in one position. Now also, since they are muscular, they are muscles. So the muscles can contract, expand. The muscles can cause movement. So these muscles can help to adjust the focal length of the lens. They can increase the focal length, they can decrease the focal length. Now in case you are not aware of what is focal length, you can refer detailed videos on spherical mirrors and lenses which have been taught in class 10. So you can refer those videos and then you can get an idea about focal length, real and inverted image, and all these basics. So as I said, the next important part is ciliary muscles, because they basically control the curvature of the lens. So whether the lens is going to be thinner or it is going to be thicker, that is all going to be determined by the ciliary muscles. Then comes the next fluid structure, which is called vitreous humor. So this entire space, if you see, that is filled with this fluid structure. Now why do we need so much of fluid? Now this fluid is not more of water, it is more jelly-like, so it has less water content. But it fills this entire space and thus it helps to maintain the spherical shape of the eye. Now it is like you have a balloon. Now you fill the balloon with water. So what does the water do? Water helps to maintain the shape of the balloon. Now when you take the water out, what happens? The balloon deflates. It is just a small piece on your hand. Now again, when you inflate it by putting air inside the balloon, again the air inside helps to maintain the shape of the balloon. Similarly here also, this jelly-like fluid, it helps to maintain the spherical shape of eye. So the entire space between the lens and the retina, which is a huge space, that entire space is filled with this fluid that is called vitreous humor. Next is the most important part of the eye, which is responsible where the image is formed, that is retina. So it is a light sensitive screen on which image is formed. So basically this layer, it is sensitive to light. So that means retina has cells which can sense light, which can receive light. So they contain, and these light sensitive cells are called rods and cones. So these rods and cones, they are able to feel the presence of light and they convert them into electrical signals. And these electrical signals are then transported to the brain through the optic nerves. So that's how retina functions. Now we will talk a little bit more about rods and cones of retina to understand more about the functioning of retina. But for now, you should remember that image is always formed on retina, and retina has cells which can actually receive light, and that's how they help in formation of image. Then comes the optic nerves. Their job is just to connect the eye with the brain. So they send the electrical signals which are produced by the cells present on retina, and then they send it to the brain. Thank you. Please visit www.examfear.com to watch more educational videos with a better experience. Please do not forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for latest updates. Thank you once again. Hello friends, this video on Light Part 10 is brought to you by examfear.com. No more fear from exam. So now we have discussed one major aspect of what is needed for us to see, that is light. So we have discussed reflection of light, we have also discussed dispersion of light, but which part of our body helps us to see? That is eye. So now we will spend some time trying to understand the structure and the function of eye. So eye is one of the most important organ of our body which helps us to see the beautiful things around us. But eye can see things only reflection has to happen. Without that, our eye will not be able to help us to see things. So if you talk about the structure, they are roughly spherical in shape. But when you look at an eye from outside, it doesn't look spherical. But basically it is spherical, but it is just that it is placed inside a socket. So what we see is only the upper portion of the eye. But actually, if you look at it sideways, it is nothing but a spherical kind of a structure which is inserted inside a socket. So from outside, the major portion of the eye which is seen is the white colored layer, and this outer white coat is a tough layer and it is protective in nature. Now inside that we have all delicate organs. We have a lens so that image formation can take place. So obviously it needs protection, right? So for that purpose we have this white coat so that it is quite tough and it can protect all the internal parts of the eye. So let us quickly look at the various components of eye. So this is a side view of a human eye. So let us see what are the different parts of eye. So they are cornea, aqueous humor, pupil, iris, lens, ciliary muscles, vitreous humor, retina, and optic nerves. So these are the important components of eye. So here in this picture you can already see them labeled, but we will spend time understanding each of them. So first let us look where are they located. First is cornea. So cornea is like the outermost layer. So as you can see here, this outermost layer is cornea. Next is aqueous humor. The name itself suggests aqueous, something watery. So the watery fluid which is present here, that is aqueous humor. Third is pupil. So pupil is nothing but this opening in the eye. So you see a black spot at the center of your eye, which is very small. Exactly at the center you see a black spot. So that is nothing but pupil. Next is iris. Now this pupil is surrounded by another structure which is which is seen in different colors in different person. So in somebody it is blue in color, in somebody it is brown in color, and that's how we say that girl has brown eyes, because the color of the iris is brown. So iris can be of different colors like black, brown or blue. So, and this iris is present surrounding the pupil. So you see this part is pupil and surrounding the pupil is iris. Next is the lens. So here you can see the lens very clearly. This is the lens. After that we have ciliary muscles. So where are the ciliary muscles? They are located here. So you see the lens is supported by these muscular structure. So the ciliary muscles will help in the movement of the lens. It helps to adjust the focal length of the lens. Next is vitreous humor. This is again another fluid which is present in this area. So the fluid which is present in the outer portion of the eye, that is aqueous humor, and this fluid which fills the entire inner part of the eye is vitreous humor. Next is retina, which is the most important part. So you see this inner layer is retina and image formation happens here. So this is the place where image is formed, and only if image gets formed we will be able to see things. And the retina is connected to the brain through the optic nerves. So you see these optic nerves, they are going to connect the eye to the brain, and then brain helps us to perceive what we see. So eye helps to create images, but what are those images? What do they mean? So all those perception comes from the brain. So the communication between the eye and the brain happens through the optic nerves. So these are the major components. So now we will discuss each of these components one by one. So let us start with cornea. So cornea, as I said, is the outermost membrane through which light enters. So this is a comparatively very thin membrane. Why is it thin? Because we also want light to enter inside the eye, because as long as light doesn't enter inside, reflection cannot take place, and if reflection doesn't happen, image formation will not take place. If there is no image being formed, then we cannot see anything. Right? So this cornea actually allows light to enter inside. So it doesn't stop like that. The entire amount of light is allowed to enter. Then comes the aqueous humor, which is this space, this fluid which fills the space immediately after cornea. It is fluid, mostly water, to maintain the correct pressure balance of the eye. So there is a pressure inside the eye which should not be very less, nor should it be very high. So that is why it is called aqueous. Aqua means water. Since it is mostly made up of water, so it is called the aqueous humor. After that comes the pupil. Now pupil is an important part because this controls the amount of light entering inside the eye. So if you see, this is like an opening here. So through this opening light will enter. Now how much light has to enter will be decided by the size of the pupil. Now the size of the pupil in turn is decided by iris, because if you see here, this part is iris. Now if you look at this picture, this colored part which you see is iris, and this part which you see is pupil. So this is pupil and this is iris. Now iris will control the size of the pupil. So sideways, if you see, this one is iris and this one is pupil. So this opening is pupil. Now whenever there is too much of light present in the surroundings, that time we do not want that entire light to enter inside. So in that case what happens? The size of the pupil decreases. How it decreases? Because the iris comes together. So when the iris comes together, so obviously a very small opening is left behind. So the pupil size decreases. But when there is dim light, we want more and more light to enter. So the iris will move apart and the size of the pupil will increase. So basically the size of the pupil is decided by iris, but how much is the opening? That is, what is the size of the pupil, that decides how much light will enter inside the eye. And this is very important, because if too much of light suddenly enters inside the eye, that might damage the retina. Similarly, if every time there is less light entering inside the eye, that will also affect the image formation process. So it is an aperture in front of the lens. So if you see, this opening is just in front of the lens. This is the lens, just in front of the lens you have this opening, so that the light can enter through the pupil and then it can go through the lens. The diameter of pupil is regulated by iris. So iris is muscular in structure. That is why iris can contract and expand, and that's how it can control the size of the pupil. But iris is an opaque structure. That means light cannot pass through iris because iris is all opaque. So whatever light has to enter inside the eye will have to enter through the pupil. So, but iris gives a distinct color to our eye. That's what I was telling, right? Some people have blue eyes, some have brown eyes, some have black eyes. So all these different eye colors are due to the different colors of the iris. Thank you. Please visit www.examfear.com to watch more educational videos with a better experience. Please do not forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for latest updates. Thank you once again. Hello friends, this video on Light Part 13 is brought to you by examfear.com. No more fear from. So now let us look at the image formation by eye. How exactly image formation takes place inside our eye. Now, as I said, image is formed on the retina, and what kind of, so let us suppose this is the object we are looking at. So this is the object. So the first image is formed on the retina, and the image which is formed is going to be real and inverted, because the lens which is, the eye lens which is present, that forms real and inverted image. So how the image becomes erect? By the brain. So when it goes, the real and inverted image goes through the optical nerve to the brain, and then the brain perceives it in the right way. Now, the focal length of the eye lens is varied by the ciliary muscles in such a way that the image is formed on the retina. So let us look at the ray diagram for a distant object. So in this case, we are trying to view something which is located at a distant point, very far object. So in that case, these parallel rays of light are the incident rays. They come, they reach the lens. This is the lens. Now from the lens, they tend to converge because this is a convex lens, and finally they converge at a point on the retina. So this is the point where an inverted and real image is formed. Similarly, what happens when we are looking at a nearby object? In that case, let us say we are trying to look at this object. This is the object. So from here you see incident rays of light come, they pass through the lens, and they again converge at a point on the retina, and here image is formed. So here also you see, where is the image forming? The point where the reflected rays meet. So here in this case, since we are talking about lens, so refraction take place. Now we have not discussed refraction in this lesson, so I will not get into the detail of that. But here also, where the refracted rays meet, there the image is formed. So here image is formed. So that's how the concept is quite simple. Retina is nothing but the screen where image will be formed, and the rays will undergo refraction by the eye lens, and then we know where, depending on the location of the object, the image will be formed. Power of accommodation. So power of accommodation is nothing but the ability of adjustment of the eye lens. Now I had mentioned before, right, that the eye lens, it can adjust its focal length, and who will help in adjusting the focal length? The ciliary muscles which are attached to the eye lens. Now how much it can adjust so that the images are formed on the retina, because the images which the eye is seeing, they are located at different positions. Some of them might be very near, some of them might be very far away. So how much adjustment the eye lens can do, that is known as the power of accommodation. So when we look at a distant object, so if you see here, what happens in that case? The ciliary muscles here. So where do you have the ciliary muscles? These are the ciliary muscles. And this is the lens, right? So you have ciliary muscles on both ends, on both the sides. The lens is actually attached to the ciliary muscles. Now these muscles will contract. Now when these muscles contract, what happens? The lens become thinner, because when the ciliary muscles will contract, so they will also try to contract the lens. So the lens will become thinner and the focal length will increase. That is the point focus where the rays of light will meet. So that is the point, that point is called focus. So this point is focus. So basically the focal length, so the distance of this point from the center of the lens is called focal length. So the focal length will increase in that case, and as a result the image will be formed on the retina. Now what happens when we see a nearby object? In case of a nearby object, as you can see, the lens now is like quite bulged. It has spread out. How did it spread out? Because the ciliary muscles have expanded. So the ciliary muscles expand like this, and when they expand, the lens also expand. When the lens expand, what happens? The distance of the focus from the lens reduces, so the focal length is decreased. So this is how the focal length of the lens can be increased or decreased when we are looking at objects at different positions, and this ability of the lens is known as power of accommodation. That is, it is the power of the lens to accommodate looking at different objects. So that is why it is termed power of accommodation. Thank you. Please visit www.examfear.com to watch more educational videos with a better experience. Please do not forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for latest updates. Thank you once again. Hello friends, this video on Light Part 12 is brought to you by examfear.com. No more fear from exam. So let us more closely look at the cells, the photosensitive cells of retina, that is rods and cones. So rods, they contain specific photopigments. Now why are they photosensitive? Why photo, that is light, sensitive, that is sensitive to light. So why are they photosensitive? Because they contain photopigments. They contain some specific pigments which can sense light. Now both of these rods and cones, they contain different pigments, and that is why they respond differently to light. So rods contain a purple colored pigment called rhodopsin. That is why it is named rod. And these are responsible for vision at low light level. So when there is dim light or when there is less light, that time also we are able to see. It is not that, for example, when there is dim light in your house, we do not go blind, right? We can still see things in dim light. It is just that we need to put a little more effort to see that. So those cells which are responsible for vision when there is limited light, either dim light or no light. In fact, sometimes you would have seen that suddenly when power goes off, so the entire house becomes dark. Initially you are not able to see anything, but if you remain in dark for some time, then after a couple of minutes you are able to see certain things. Obviously you will not be able to see everything clearly, but at least you will be able to see things. For example, you are in your living room, okay, so first the light is switched on, so you are able to see everything. Suddenly light goes off and the room becomes dark. So now initially you will not be able to see anything, it will be complete dark. But after a few minutes you will be able to see a slight picture of where the television is, where the fridge is, very slightly you will be able to see. So that vision is due to the rods, because these rhodopsin pigments, they help to sense light of low intensities. Rods are more numerous than cones. So if you talk about the number of rods present and number of cones present, so rods are more than that of cones. Now cones are just the opposite. They contain a different pigment which is responsive to red, green and blue light. So they can actually sense a lot of colorful lights. So that is why they help in daylight vision or colored vision. It helps to distinguish colors because it can actually sense specific colors. So in this picture are drawn the rod and cone cells. So the blue ones which you see here, they are the rods, and the red ones are the cones. So these are cones. So if you look at the number of rods, they are quite more when compared to the number of cones. So this is how the retina is. So retina is sensitive to light due to the presence of rods and cones. Now another interesting thing, there are certain animals which become active at night. Some of the nocturnal birds like owl, so they are active at night. They can see things at night. In fact, not only owl, there are a couple of animals who can see at night. Now, can you guess how are they able to see at night? Because they have more numerous rods, because the rods in them are more in number, they are more active, and because of that they are able to see at night. But in case of human beings, we also have rods which might be more numerous than cones, but they are not sufficient enough to give a clear vision at night. But whichever animal is able to see properly at night, that means their rods are extremely effective. So that is the composition of retina. Now if we try to understand the function of retina, then it would be like a screen. It is a light sensitive screen. Why is this screen light sensitive? Due to the presence of rods and cones. And on this screen, image is formed. So it is just like the normal image formation. But instead of a plain mirror, you have a lens here. So you have a lens, you have an object. Object are those things which we are seeing, and you have a screen where image will be formed, and that screen is retina. Rods and cones contain the photopigments, and that's how image is formed here. Now another very important thing, when we talk about retina, it is worth to talk of blind spot. Now on this retina, on this screen of retina, there is one single spot where image formation does not take place. Why? Because there are no photoreceptor cells present at this particular spot. So if you look at this spot, there are no cells present here. Now if there are no photoreceptor cells, there is nobody to receive light. If nobody is able to receive light, no image formation will take place. So why is it called blind spot? Because since no image formation takes place at this point, we are actually not able to see anything at this point. Sounds quite surprising, right? That we are able to see everything. So how do we know that there exists a point inside our eye, and whenever the ray comes to that point, we are not able to see stuffs? So how do we know that? So let me give you an illustration, and this illustration will tell you that there exists this point. Now before that, let me talk about this. Anything which we see, any image which is formed on our retina, that doesn't just vanish immediately. Whatever we see, that impression will remain in the retina for 1/16th of a second, which is not a very small time. I mean, when we are talking about retina remembering something for 1/16th of a second. Now, whenever we see something moving, for example, a moving picture, maybe in a movie. So how do we see that moving picture? Something which is moving on a screen. So anything which is moving on a screen is actually a huge number of pictures which are moving one after another. Now let's take this example. Let us suppose you have two different pictures. This is picture 1, this is picture 2. They are two separate pictures. Okay. Now let us assume that nobody is moving. This boy, there is no boy at all. It is just one picture. The first picture 1, the second picture 2. Now let us suppose if these two pictures are made to move at a very fast rate, something like this. So if these two pictures are moving so fast, what did you see just now? It felt as if the boy is walking, right? So even though there was no boy at all, it was just two different pictures. So nobody was moving, but it was just the pictures. It was arranged in a particular sequence, and they were moving at a very fast rate. It was moving at such a fast rate that the first image, when we see, the impression still remains in the retina. Before that, the second image is formed. Again, that impression remains in the retina. So as a result, images are formed in continuation, and we feel that the boy is moving. And that is how moving picture is perceived by our retina. Right? So now let us look at the illustration of blind spot. So just now I was telling, there exists one point on the retina where we go blind, where the image is not formed. Now to understand this, what you can do is, now it is extremely difficult for me to exactly explain where that blind spot comes, because it is something which you have to feel for yourself. So all I can do is I can just guide you to do this. You take a strip of paper, a rectangular sheet of paper, and on this you mark 2 points. On one side you mark it as a plus sign, and on the other side you mark it as a dot. So that's how you do it. Now what you do, you just close your right eye. You close your right eye and you try to focus on the dot. So by closing your right eye, you are just looking constantly at the dot. Please remember that you are going to close your right eye. So let us suppose this is your right eye, this is your left eye. Okay, so this is your right eye, this is your left eye, and you are looking towards this. Okay, so you close your right eye and you look constantly at the dot. So look only on the dot. But I'm very sure even if you are looking only on the dot, you are still able to see that plus sign, that it is somewhere there. Okay. Now you start bringing the sheet of paper closer to you. Now as you start bringing it closer to you, a point will come where we will not be able to see this cross sign. Even though you will be able to see the entire sheet of paper, but this cross sign will vanish. That point is nothing but your blind spot, because at that point image formation is not happening. That is why you are not able to see the image of this object, because this object is located at such a point that its image should have formed on that blind spot. But since there are no photoreceptor cells, so image formation is not taking place and you are not able to see that point. And please make sure, try to do this experiment yourself, and you will see that there exists only one such point. It is not that everywhere you are feeling the same. So for one particular point you will have this kind of feeling. Now you can perform this experiment vice versa also, that is, you can close your left eye, but then in that case you should focus on the cross and then bring it near, and you will see that the dot will vanish at the blind spot. So this is how you can feel the presence of blind spot. Thank you. Please visit www.examfear.com to watch more educational videos with a better experience. Please do not forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for latest updates. Thank you once again.